In November of 2023, the board of directors of this relatively small, supposedly idealistic, nonprofit organization just abruptly fired their CEO.
Which was a massive shock.
Right. And within 48 hours, that single boardroom decision nearly triggered the collapse of the entire global artificial intelligence economy.
Just utter chaos.
Exactly. I mean, hundreds of top-tier engineers were threatening to walk out. Billions of dollars in market value just hung in the balance. But, if you want to understand where the AI revolution is actually heading, you have to look past the slick product demos.
And the underlying code, yeah.
Yeah, you have to look at the people who are actually in that room. You have to look at the egos, the deep-seated rivalries, and, frankly, the intense obsessions of a remarkably small, insular group of individuals who are holding the keys to the future.
Right, the architects of this whole thing.
Exactly. So our mission today in this deep dive is to look at the actual cast of characters driving this industry. We are using source material that maps out the underlying philosophies clashing behind the scenes. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and to really grasp the gravity of this, we have to look at these personalities not just as tech celebrities,
Right.
but really as architects of a new global infrastructure.
Yeah.
Understanding who they are and what drives them is a true civic necessity for you, the listener.
Absolutely.
Because we are watching a handful of unelected individuals make unilateral decisions that they will dictate the economic and social realities of billions of people.
It is kind of wild to think about.
It really is. They are operating at a velocity that makes any traditional regulatory response practically irrelevant. The tech is moving fast, but the underlying power dynamics.
That is what actually steers the ship.
Exactly.
And at the absolute center of that power dynamic sits Sam Altman. I mean, he is really the pragmatist defining this era. We all know he leads OpenAI, but his actual background is what reveals his playbook, right?
Team of roots.
Right? He didn't spend his formative years isolated in some theoretical computer science lab. He was the president of Y Combinator.
Which is huge.
Yeah. The startup accelerator that essentially wrote the modern Silicon Valley rulebook for hyperscaling. His entire career is basically built on understanding how to maneuver at this chaotic intersection of technology, extreme venture capital, and, political influence.
And that background in aggressive high-stakes scaling is the lens through which you really have to view OpenAI's current structure.
It's just so weird, right?
It is arguably one of the most bizarre legal anomalies in corporate history.
Right.
Because OpenAI wasn't founded to dominate a market.
Right.
It was founded as a 501c3 nonprofit. The explicit mission was to develop artificial general intelligence strictly for the benefit of humanity.
No profit motive.
Exactly. Entirely insulated from the perverse incentives of quarterly earnings reports.
But, the math simply didn't work. Building frontier AI, the absolute bleeding edge of machine learning, it requires massive server farms. And compute at that scale costs billions. So they created this capped profit structure underneath the nonprofit board. It is like setting out to build a spaceship entirely for a charitable mission, right?
Okay, I like this.
Like a purely scientific endeavor for the good of the planet. But halfway through building the fuselage, you realize the only way to actually afford the rocket fuel is to start selling VIP tickets to billionaires.
Right. Well, the spaceship analogy works, but it misses one crucial, fatal detail.
Oh, what is that?
The billionaires didn't just buy tickets. They inherently altered the trajectory of the mission.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
By bringing in massive investments, predominantly from Microsoft, OpenAI created a structural paradox.
Yeah.
You have an entity officially bound by a philanthropic charter, but structurally operating as one of the most ruthless, commercially aggressive tech companies on Earth.
Because the investors expect a return on those billions.
Exactly.
And that paradox is exactly what detonated in November 2023. You had a nonprofit board, acting on those original safety-conscious, idealistic principles, firing the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar commercial juggernaut.
Over vague concerns about his candor, no less.
Right. They thought they had the legal authority to hit the brakes, but the commercial reality fought back instantly. Almost the entire workforce threatened to resign and follow Altman to Microsoft.
It was a total revolt.
Within days, the board members who orchestrated the firing were out, and Altman was back. The money won.
What's fascinating here is how that specific crisis stripped away the illusion that a nonprofit charter can contain hypercapitalist momentum.
Yeah, that is a great way to put it.
The board thought they had ultimate control on paper, but the leverage actually rested with the talent and the compute providers. And that tension between moving safely for humanity and moving aggressively for investors, it didn't just start in November 2023.
Right.
That friction had been cooking for years, and it's precisely what drove OpenAI's most critical talent right out the door to start rival factions.
Right, because selling those VIP billionaire tickets fundamentally changed the speed of the company, and that speed terrified the researchers actually building the systems.
Exactly.
Let's look at Dario and Daniela Amodei. In 2021, Dario was OpenAI's VP of Research.
And Daniela was VP of Operations.
Yeah, they were literally running the engine room. But they watched commercial pressure accelerating. They felt safety was, taking a back seat, and they walked out.
And they didn't just leave quietly.
No.
They took a contingent of top safety researchers with them to found Anthropic. Their thesis was that you cannot retrofit safety onto an incredibly powerful AI system after you have already rushed it to market.
Right, like putting on a seatbelt after you crash.
Exactly. You have to build the constraint into the foundation.
And their answer to that is something they call constitutional AI. Let's break down the mechanics of this, because I really want to understand how it actually differs from standard models. Because most AI is trained to just be a sycophant, right?
Yeah.
It uses human feedback to learn what we like, so it just tells the user whatever earns a statistical thumbs up.
That is the core vulnerability of traditional reinforcement learning from human feedback.
Okay.
If an AI is optimized purely for human approval, and a user asks it how to synthesize a dangerous chemical, the AI is structurally incentivized to be helpful and provide the answer.
Which is terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Amadeus saw that as a catastrophic flaw. So, constitutional AI removes the human from that specific feedback loop.
How does that work?
Well, instead, they provide the AI with a literal text constitution. It is a set of philosophical principles, drawing on things like the UN Declaration of Human Rights.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When the AI generates a response, a secondary automated system evaluates that response against the Constitution. It critiques and revises its own output before the human ever sees it.
So the system is essentially policing itself based on a preloaded philosophical framework.
Precisely.
But, here is the massive contradiction that I just cannot look past. Anthropic was founded as a rebellion against OpenAI's commercialization.
Right.
Yet, they have since taken billions of dollars from Amazon and Google. They are playing the exact same high-stakes venture capital game.
This raises an important question. Can any architecture, even constitutional AI, withstand the sheer gravitational pull of the market?
I mean, I doubt it.
Anthropic is attempting to thread an almost impossible needle here. They're trying to prove that you can be a hyper-competitive, multi-billion-dollar player while keeping safety as your defining product feature.
Right.
But the moment their model starts lagging behind competitors because its safety filters make it too cautious or, too slow.
Which is bound to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That philosophy will be severely tested by their investors.
And speaking of testing philosophies, there is no figure in this landscape more contradictory than Elon Musk.
Oh, yes.
He was actually one of the original bankrollers who helped found OpenAI. He left the board in 2018, officially citing conflicts with Tesla's own AI ambitions.
Right, that was the public reason.
Yeah, but the source text makes it very clear that it was a bitter, deeply ideological split.
Musk's core grievance is that OpenAI completely abandoned its open source ethos to become a closed, profit-driven subsidiary of Microsoft.
He even sued them over it, right?
He did. He sued OpenAI over this alleged breach of their founding agreement. But his actions go far beyond lawsuits. In 2023, he launched xAI and released a rival model, Grok.
Oh, Grok! Yeah.
Which was deliberately designed to be anti-woke and less restricted than its competitors.
See, I really struggle with Musk's narrative here. Just look at the timeline. For over a decade, he's been arguably the loudest voice on the planet, warning us that AI is an existential threat.
He called it summoning the demon.
Right. And yet he turns around and pours immense resources into building his own frontier model. If you truly believe you are summoning a demon, why are you building a summoning circle in your backyard?
Well, it reveals a profound savior complex that is very common among these specific historical figures.
You think he wants to save us?
Musk clearly believes that technology possesses the capacity for immense destruction. But his actions suggest an underlying conviction that the only way to mitigate that destruction is if he is the one holding the reins.
Oh, I see.
He trusts his own philosophical framework over Altman's or the Amadeus. It is not about stopping the technology. It is about controlling the crown.
It is a battle of absolute egos. But, while the Silicon Valley operators, Altman, the Amadeus, Musk, while they are fighting over corporate governance, safety guardrails, and market share, there is an entirely different war happening.
A totally different battlefield.
Right. The actual scientists who invented the underlying math are having a fundamental disagreement about what artificial intelligence even is.
Because we have to separate the business of AI from the science of AI. The people commercializing the tools are operating on completely different assumptions than the visionaries who engineered the paradigms to begin with.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at Demis Hassabis. He is the head of Google DeepMind, born from the massive 2023 merger of Google Brain and his company, DeepMind.
Right.
When you look at his trajectory, it is entirely different from the startup hustle background of someone like Altman. Hassabis was a child chess prodigy. He was designing hit video games as a teenager.
He is brilliant.
Yeah, but most importantly, he is a Cambridge-educated neuroscientist.
And that neuroscience background is the decoder ring for everything DeepMind does.
Really? How so?
Well, Hassabis doesn't view AI as a software product. He views it as a rigorous scientific pursuit to reverse engineer intelligence itself. DeepMind, which Google bought in 2014 for around £500 million, they didn't make their name by building chatbots.
No, they did.
They built AlphaGo, which mastered the board game Go, a game relying on intuition and millions of potential board states. Then they built AlphaFold, which essentially solved the 50-year-old grand challenge of protein folding.
And that distinction is vital. AlphaFold isn't scraping Reddit to predict the next word in a sentence. It is accurately predicting the physical structure of biological matter. Hassabis approaches Axia with the discipline of a scientist and the strategic foresight of a chess player. He studies how biological brains learn through reinforcement in a physical environment, and he applies those mechanisms to machines.
He is looking for underlying truths, not just a slick user interface.
Right.
Which puts him in stark contrast to the dominant commercial narrative right now. Hassabis represents a disciplined, empirical march toward general intelligence.
Okay.
But even at the absolute peak of the scientific community, the consensus shatters. Because if Hassabis is the meticulous strategist, Yann LeCun is the ultimate contrarian.
Oh, Yann LeCun. He is Meta's chief AI scientist, and he is universally recognized as one of the three godfathers of deep learning.
A true pioneer.
Yeah, he helped invent the architecture that makes all this possible. But while you have researchers at Anthropic deeply worried about existential risk, LeCun is aggressively dismissing what he calls AI doom scenarios.
He hates the doom narrative.
He is highly skeptical that the current path we are on will ever lead to truly general intelligence.
LeCun's argument attacks the fundamental architecture of the models dominating the headlines today. The entire industry is currently obsessed with large language models.
LLMs.
Right. These are autoregressive systems. They ingest oceans of human text and use complex statistics to predict the most likely next word in a sequence.
I admit, I sometimes look at the panic surrounding these language models, and I lean towards LeCun's skepticism.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if I am questioning the doom narrative, I look at the mechanics. These models do not have physical sensors. They don't interact with reality.
That is a fair point.
Right. If an AI can write a brilliant Python script or pass the bar exam, but has no underlying conception of what the physical world is, why should we treat it as a conscious existential threat? It is basically just an incredibly sophisticated autocomplete.
LeCun would argue that you are absolutely correct. He insists that predicting text is not the same as understanding reality.
Because it's just words.
Yes. A language model knows that the word apple often appears near the word tree, but it has no sensory understanding of gravity, weight, or space.
It doesn't know what an apple actually feels like.
Exactly. LeCun advocates for systems that learn from sensory experience, from video, from interacting with physical environments, the way a biological animal learns.
Right.
He believes that until AI develops a grounded world model, it will remain fundamentally limited, hallucinate constantly, and pose zero existential threat. And he visibly relishes taking this intellectual sledgehammer to the anxieties of his peers.
It is wild that the people who literally wrote the foundational textbooks on deep learning cannot agree if the current technology is going to destroy civilization or just remain a highly effective parlor trick.
It is a massive rift.
And that ideological split brings us to the most poignant and frankly tragic figure in the source material, Geoffrey Hinton.
Another of the three godfathers of deep learning.
Right. His story is a profound distillation of the ethical burden of pure science.
Absolutely.
Hinton spent 30 years of his life developing the exact mathematical frameworks, specifically backpropagation, that allow neural networks to learn.
He really laid the groundwork.
He pushed that boulder up the hill for decades, when most of the computer science world thought neural networks were a dead end. And recently, he walked away from his senior position at Google for one specific reason.
So he could openly warn the public.
Yes, about the immense dangers of his own life's work.
You have to appreciate the stark difference between Hinton and the boardroom operators we discussed earlier.
Oh, completely different.
He isn't trying to outmaneuver a rival CEO or secure a massive cloud computing contract. He's a scientist who pursued an elegant mathematical theory.
And he succeeded.
That is the tragedy. His theory was proven spectacularly right, and now he is looking at the emerging capabilities of these models and realizing that the consequences of his success might be catastrophic.
Yeah.
He is grappling with the burden of creation without having any actual control over how the creations are deployed.
He looked at the monster he helped engineer, realized it was far more capable than he anticipated, and realized he had no way to put it back in the box.
It is incredibly heavy.
So, what does this all mean? We've looked at the pragmatists leveraging capped profit loopholes, the defectors trying to automate philosophical safety, the billionaire critics building their own rivals, and the foundational scientists who fundamentally disagree on whether the machine is a threat or a mirage.
It is a lot to take in.
Why does mapping out these specific personalities actually matter to you, the listener, right now?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it matters because these intense, highly technical disagreements are not just academic thought experiments.
No.
They are the battlegrounds where the rules of the next century are being written. These individuals are fiercely debating how fast AI should be deployed, what architectural risks are acceptable, and what the core purpose of machine intelligence should be.
And we are not in the room.
Exactly. The crucial reality is that these debates are not happening in transparent, democratic forums. They are not being resolved in parliaments or open courts.
Where are they happening?
They are being settled in exclusive venture capital meetings in San Francisco, in private Slack channels, and in closed-door boardroom coups. The architecture of our shared future is being hammered out by a few dozen people with fundamentally conflicting worldviews.
They are dictating the future of the global economy, and none of us got to cast a ballot.
No, we didn't.
Which leads me to a final thought from our source text today, something I really want you to mull over as you watch this industry evolve.
Okay.
The material draws a very deliberate historical parallel. It compares these AI leaders to the railroad barons of the 19th century and the automobile pioneers of the early 20th.
Oh, that is a striking comparison.
Think about the mechanics of that. Those historical barons didn't just incorporate successful businesses. Their personal ambitions, their cutthroat rivalries, and their hunger for scale literally terraformed the earth.
They changed the physical world.
Yeah, they laid down thousands of miles of iron tracks and carved massive highways through continents. By doing so, they locked all of human society into a brand new way of living, commuting, and building cities, long before the average citizen ever had a chance to vote on whether they even wanted a car-centric world.
Right.
The physical landscape was altered permanently by the design of a few men. Today, these AI barons are doing the exact same thing, but instead of iron and asphalt, they are laying down the cognitive tracks for our future.
Wow.
They are building the invisible infrastructure of human thought, digital interaction, and knowledge.